Hi, I'm Femi OK and you're in the stream. Today, mental health. As important as a good heart, strong lungs, yet much harder to talk about. We'll be discussing this with young people so that they're not crazy to care about mental health. Wow, you so wanted to talk about this community. How do I know? Malika Bilal, our digital producer. Few hints online. What's going on?
Just a few. A community was really overwhelming today because everyone, seemingly from around the world, could relate to this in some way or had something to say about this. So I want to start with a comment from South Africa. This is Daryl. Listen to what he told the stream.
Hi, my name is Daryl and I'm from Cape Town in South Africa. 2 years ago, I lost both my legs in a suicide attempt. I think it's up to us as adults to set the example to our young people by showing our vulnerabilities first and showing that it's okay to talk about mental illnesses like depression, just as we would any other disease like cancer or diabetes. It's nothing to be ashamed of, it's not your weakness, and it's not your burden to carry on your own. There is help for it.
So a powerful way to start this conversation, but we can't do it without you. You can tweet us your questions or your comments with #AJStream.
My name is Philip Wythe. I'm a Rutgers literature student, and I'm in the stream.
Not everyone has mental illness, but everyone has mental health. So why is it so hard to talk about, especially when we have a problem? Mental health problems start young. 1 in 5 children and adolescents have a mental illness. That's according to the World Health Organization, and about half start before the age of 15. Psychological and emotional distress is so widespread that suicide is the second biggest killer of 15 to 29-year-olds. But stigma, myths and poor resources are keeping many from talking about it. So with us, we have young people from around the world to share their experiences with mental illness. In Toronto, Canada, Samantha Penner is a teacher who lives with obsessive compulsive disorder, or OCD. In Reykjavik, Iceland, Silja Bjornsdottir is a mental health advocate who uses her depression and attempted suicide to teach others. In Cape Town, South Africa, Ryan Edmonds is a senior counsellor with a South African depression and anxiety group. And in Los Angeles, we have Andrea Letamendi. She's a psychologist with the Hathaway Sycamores Child and Family Services. So welcome, everybody. I'm so grateful for you to come on this show and talk, hopefully very candid, about mental health. Let me start with Silja. When did you work out, and how young were you, when you realised that you weren't as mentally healthy as you could be?
Well, for me, it started when I was 17 years old and I was in a car accident. So I suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder after that. And I actually hid it from myself and my family for the better part of 3 years until I was 20 years old.
How did you do that, Silja? How did you hide it?
Well, it didn't go so well, not with my immediate friends and my closest family members. And they were always telling me, you know, I think you have a problem. But I was always on the kind of, you know, I'm supposed to be able to handle this. Like, you know, people seem to be able to handle these things around me. So why am I weaker, or, you know, why can't I be as strong? So I kind of just put it aside and told myself this was a bad day or a bad week. But it ended up being a very bad 3 years.
What were you doing that people noticed around you? What were you hiding?
Well, I think it started with skipping school, my grades falling down, and just having this general, like, this bad attitude where I had to keep pushing people away. I had to put up these walls and I put up these masks. So people started to see how I was changing, how my behavior was changing.
Yeah.
And they didn't immediately link it to depression. First, they just thought, wow, she's turned out to be, you know, an a-hole. But it was a part of a bigger problem. It wasn't just behavioral issues or me lashing out. It was me lashing out because I was hurting inside.
Andrea is nodding, although I feel like, Andrea, in your day job, you spend a lot of time nodding. What's behind
I do.
Yeah, so listening to people who are nodding a lot. What's behind that? You're obviously recognising what the experience Silja's went through.
Right, absolutely. And just hearing her say that it was difficult to talk about it, that she would do things to kind of hide it, that's actually incredibly human. You know, there's something that you feel other people would be judging you about, or you feel that maybe something's wrong with me. Maybe I'm not strong enough. Maybe I'm doing something that I shouldn't be. And it's so interesting because those experiences of having to close yourself off and essentially being inauthentic leads to even more psychological distress and feeling even worse, so to speak. So it's so important that we begin to talk more about it and encourage people to be expressive and talk about what it is that they're going through.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned the being judged, that feeling, because so many people online responded to a question that we put out asking, what are some of the unhelpful comments and questions that you get from people who think they might be helping, but instead are doing the opposite? So take a look at some of the ones we rounded up.
You're too sensitive.
It's all in your mind.
But your life is so good.
Calm down.
Get over it.
You're privileged.
Just be happy.
You're not allowed to be depressed.
You're overthinking it.
Try being like us.
Take a deep breath.
Everything is fine.
We all get a little blue sometimes.
Samantha, I could see you smile a little at that. What do you get? What kind of comments do you get when people know that you have OCD?
I think the one that hit me the most was you're overthinking. Yes, I probably am overthinking it. I have OCD. I don't know what to tell you.
So what do you wish people would ask you instead?
What they can do to help me calm down. Or honestly, just tell me about their day. Because honestly, I obviously can't deal with focusing on my day, and I would so much rather listen to your day.
So Samantha, you know what I'm going to ask you about, right? Like how you navigate through the first part of today. I think to give people an example of what you're having to cope with and manage with obsessive compulsive disorder, the type that you have, tell us about the morning.
Well, so the specific type of obsessive compulsive disorder that I have is related to symmetry, and that's symmetry with respect to my own body and the way I feel. So if I touch something with my right hand, I always have to touch that or something with my left hand to make sure that it's symmetrical, and this is throughout my entire body. And this extends to lines on the ground, because if I touch a line on the ground with my right foot, I then have to do the exact same thing with my left foot. So this means when I'm in bed before I wake up in the morning, I often roll out of bed, and then I touch the wall with one arm, and then I'm rolling around and I'm trying to touch it with the other arm to make sure it's the same. And then I go to the bathroom and I'm brushing my teeth, but some toothpaste got on one side, and then I'm smearing toothpaste on the other side, and then I'm washing it all off my face to make sure
it sounds funny and you're laughing, but how do you even, it sounds exhausting as well.
Well, I've had obsessive compulsive disorder my entire life. And as a child, I didn't actually even know I had obsessive compulsive disorder. I actually thought everyone did things symmetrically. So I've never known any other way.
When did you work out, not everybody does everything symmetrically. I'm a little unusual in that way. When did you work that out?
Well, when I was 8 years old, my brother and I were playing on like a wheelchair ramp handlebar at a circus, actually. And we ended up getting into an argument where he pushed me into the bar. And then because the bar was so cold, it left me with this incredibly anxious feeling. So I had touched the bar with one side, and then I ended up running into that bar a number of different times just to make sure the feeling was completely the same. And then I ended up with bruises all down my arms because I had run into this bar so many times, because I wasn't even thinking about the pain. I was just thinking about how the feeling wasn't exactly the same. And
so that was the day. That was the day you worked. That was the day when you're like, okay, I'm a bit unusual.
Yes. Yes, that's the day when I realized I was unusual, but not the day I realized I had OCD.
Okay.
Just unusual.
Okay. All right, let me bring in Ryan here. What's interesting about Samantha and Sylvia's stories, and a lot of the stories we're getting in from our online community, young people, we're talking about young people's mental health. What do you think is different with young people that might, that's important that we realize? Because kids do strange things when they're youngsters. I used to walk on different lines when I was a little kid because the bears were going to get me on the lines. Now, I might have been OCD, I don't know. It's possible, or I might have just been playing. How do you know the difference? What's play, what's mental health or deteriorating mental health? Ryan.
We like to basically say that if a person is struggling, if a disorder or a behavior or an action is interfering with their life in some way. It's actually deteriorating who they are emotionally. They're pulling away socially, all of these different aspects. If they're just having fun and jumping on lines, you won't see a repeated behavior in that, but it's so personal, it's so subjective. And this is why each case is so unique. To just categorize everyone into a box. Each person here has their own story, and everyone else has theirs. So it's quite fascinating.
Celia, there are some people online who say the problem, or one of the problems, is that we don't treat mental illness in the way that we treat other illnesses. So this tweet from Susie says, we seem to think you can just get over depression or other mental illnesses, unlike you would for, say, a broken leg. And on that same note, I want to play this video comment from Kelly. She says something similar.
There are a lot of myths and misconceptions about mental health, and one of the most damaging is that having a mental health issue or seeking help for a psychological condition is a sign of weakness. No one would ever blame somebody for going to a doctor to set a broken leg or get medicine for dealing with some kind of infection. But if you go to a mental health professional, there's a huge stigma against it in American society. And that's one of the biggest hurdles to overcome if we want to address issues like depression and suicide.
Celia?
Yes, this is the whole point of everything I have been saying for 2 years. This is the topic of my TED Talk. This is everything I do in life. This is the way I talk about mental illness. And I want to comment on one of those things that are hurtful to say, is that it's all in your mind. It's as stupid to say that about someone who has mental illness as to say to someone that has breast cancer, it's all in your body. I mean, well, of course it's all in my mind, because it's my mind that is sick. That's my mind that's affected. And I think it's absolutely right what Kelly is saying, is the fact that it's kind of stupid when you think about it. That
Celia, when somebody says that to you, what do you say back?
I say, you know, what would you say to me if I had a broken leg? What would you say to me if I had cancer?
Yeah.
And, you know, if I had cancer, you know, you would be like posting Facebook comments. There would be like concerts held in my memory and all these things. You would start like a fund or whatever. But when people have mental health issues, it's always like, just get over it.
Samantha? Yeah, let me just bring in Samantha. Samantha, what's your take on this? Because you kind of, there was recognition, I know, as you were listening to that video comment.
Yeah, the comment that it's just all in your mind is definitely hurtful, because again, of course it's all in my mind. And what I say to that is, have you ever been scared of your own mind? I think that's probably the scariest thing ever, to think about. Yes, I understand it's not logical. I'm a math teacher. I love logic. I'm very reasonable, but I know it's reasonable, and I still can't get past what my brain is telling me to do. So if that means I'm spending the entire evening walking up and down the stairs, relocking the door like 60 times, that's what I'm going to do, even though I know it's locked.
Ryan, why do you think it is, you work with a lot of young people, that they're not taken seriously?
I think parents often and adults forget what it's like to be young, and they think that young people don't have the same stresses that they do. You know, I have bills to pay, I have a family to run. But they forget what it's like to be young, the pressures of relationships and marks and school. So I work a lot with young people, and the thing that I notice is that stress is very real. It affects them, but it's very, very deep, and we need to take it very seriously.
There's a couple of things back here, and I think we use words like depression and OCD and not really understand what we're talking about. Let me show you something here on my laptop. So I've got here, this is a tweet here. How can I get anything done today knowing this exists in the world? No! And it's a curled up telephone wire and hashtag OCD winking face. And there's another one here. This is Instagram. Just organize my closet, nice and pretty, OCD, and I love it. Hashtag OCD, hashtag I'm stylish. Samantha, does this like, oh, does this get to you? The fact that people are using OCD as a joke or as a gag?
Yes, absolutely. It makes me cringe every time I hear that or I see that.
Put them right. What is it that I think they're thinking of it as being, okay, you're overly neat or you're very anal. How would you describe OCD? in an accurate way?
Well, OCD is obsessions. So I obsess about things. I have recurring worries, and then those lead to compulsions. So those are some sort of behavior I do to satisfy the worry. So often my worries are, okay, something bad is going to happen because I haven't touched things symmetrically. And then my compulsion, so the behavior would be, I'm going around touching things symmetrically. And it's a disorder because I don't just do this when it's convenient. I do this all the time. And sometimes this prevents me from engaging in a normal lifestyle. So it stops me from doing things like maybe it's leaving a room because I'm too scared to touch the door handle, or actually just even crossing over a line on the street because I'm really just too scared that this line is too big to cross over, stuff like that.
Could I perhaps ask? Could I perhaps ask you what if there's a lot of research and input being put into OCD in where you're from? Because I know in South Africa, the focus is on depression, anxiety, bipolar, and OCD is something that's still being caught on by a lot of people. What's happening on your side of the world with research?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't do a lot of OCD research. Sorry.
But not even research so much. It's just awareness. Is there a great awareness? Is there an understanding, or is there still a lot of stigma around it?
I think there's still a lot of stigma around it. Sorry.
If I could jump into that, I mean, there actually in the U.S. there's a lot of research that looks into treatments for OCD, that looks into causes of OCD. Unfortunately, the research doesn't really get to the public. You know, you don't see a lot of those publications on social media. You see more of what we just saw, people actually excited that they're organized, or people saying that they have OCD and using the term in a way that's almost a disservice to people who actually are living with OCD and know what it's like to experience that. So I think it's a mixture of, there is some research, but it's not necessarily available to everybody. It's not necessarily, people don't have access to it and they're not looking for it necessarily. And it's that combination of that and these messages in the media and film and TV that kind of captures and presents OCD in a certain way that's not exactly accurate.
I want to share a view from online. I just want to get in here and share this view because this is representative of some people in our community, and I know a lot of you will push back on this, probably rightly so. But this is from Victorian, who says, those who attempt suicide are cowardly and weak. There are always solutions to this problem. And so this is picking up, I knew you'd have a response to that. This is picking up on not just knowing about the disorder, but then not knowing about how it can affect people and lead them to avenues like this. But people online immediately responded. This is Layla, and she says, that's a stupid response. Have you ever been in the shoes of someone that low? Another person also picks up on that, and he says that the view that mental illness is some kind of personal failing, it's killed people, and it's led to policies that leave those who suffer from this homeless. So Celia, I see you nodding your head, and I know you have a response to that.
Yes, it's not selfish to commit suicide, because if you've not been in the shoes of a suicidal person, I hope you never will, because this is feelings that I wouldn't wish upon my worst enemies. These are feelings that hurt you so bad, and they hurt the people around you so bad. And what I want to say to these people is that when I had the noose hanging from my ceiling light, and when I had the pills and the alcohol in my body, I was thinking two things. The first, I was thinking, oh my God, my family is going to be so glad that they're finally going to get rid of me because I'm such a burden. Because my illness and my condition has left them worried, and they have had sleepless nights, and they've had to pay for treatments and all these things. So I thought to myself, you know, my mother is just going to be so relieved, and she's going to understand that I am now in a better place, because that's what I truly believed. And this is what depression and mental illness does to you. It gets you to believe these things that are not true and don't make sense. So to these people, I want to say, do not ever tell a person or talk about a person that has died of suicide as a selfish person. Put it into context. If someone dies of cancer or any other physical illness or disease, you're never, ever, ever going to let yourself say that that person was selfish. And the same thing should go for people that have mental health. And that is my comment on that.
Celia, how are you? Yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I think it's interesting for people to realize that if you have not seen through the eyes of depression, you can never truly empathize. When I work with kids, I like to give an example that if you wear reading glasses or sunglasses and you rub it full of mud or Vaseline or something dirty, no matter what you look at, a beautiful flower, a beautiful face, it's going to look tainted. It's not going to look as beautiful as it might to me. So when looking through the eyes of depression, people perceive things in a different way. And unless you've been there, you can never really understand it.
Ryan works with an organisation called the South African Depression and Anxiety Group. I want to show you one of their teen suicide prevention classes where they're getting kids to try and understand what might be going on and how to address it. Have a look at this.
First question, ne? Who has ever been sad in their life? Raise up your hand. Okay, right, so everybody gets sad, okay? It's a normal thing, you all agree with me there. Right, so there are days when you get sad and, you know, people disappoint you or you don't always get what you want, right? You don't feel good when that happens, okay? Right, has anyone heard of depression?
So that's a really sort of basic 101 class about talking to youngsters. Andrea, a couple of things here, hearing from all of our personal experiences with the lineup that we've had. How do friends and family spot a mental health deterioration in young people? Somebody could be as young as maybe 5 or 6 even. How would you even know?
Mm-hmm. Not all kids will say something. Some kids, you know, as we just talked about, will keep it to themselves. So we just have to ask. And it sounds so simple, but just checking in. If you're a caregiver, if you're a teacher, if you're a parent, adoptive parent, older brother, older sister, check in. If you're noticing signs of isolation, if you're noticing signs of just sort of an overall, we say affect, but a presentation that seems like someone is not doing okay. They're feeling down. They're not talking a lot. They don't seem like themselves. Just ask. Right. And that's one of the most effective ways to find out information and to find out how someone is doing.
That's really simple. Malika.
And Ryan, picking up on that, there's this question from Francesca online. She says, how do people with depression escape the mindset that they're burdensome to loved ones and escape that fear of abandonment due to illness? What's your suggestion for those who are watching who might be suffering this?
Because each situation is so personal, and I think people need to realize that depression is not only one factor. It's not just environmental. It's not just genetic. It's not just the way you think or feel. There's so many facets. Because it's so subjective, this is a journey. There's no simple answer to each of these. So when I see a simple question like that, there's no correct answer. We at SADAG, for instance, would have to talk to a person directly face to face. We'd have to find out where they come from, and any good therapist would be able to help them with that. So I think the person who asked would benefit from a private consult with a mental health care practitioner.
All right, let me just check in with Celia. Go ahead, Celia.
Or just find people around you that you know and that you love and that you trust, because you know you can never be a burden on the people you love, because the people you love are always going to want to help you, even though it's hard for them. But you also have to remember, as Ryan said, that, you know, your family and your friends can only help you a certain way. Just as, you know, if I have a headache, my mother can give me a painkiller or whatever, and she can talk me through these problems that I'm having. But you always have to kind of seek, you know, professional help.
Celia, how's your...
We see the...
Hold on a bit, Ryan. Ryan, I'm going to take you to the post-show. Just give me a second, because I know you're about to launch into something very, very deep and meaningful, and I need the post-show to do that in. Celia, just very briefly, how's your mental health today?
After 2 treatments and a failed suicide attempt and a lot of work on myself with my friends and family, I'm actually doing pretty good. I haven't been to a psychiatrist in, I think, over a year now.
All right.
So, yeah, pretty good.
Very nice. A good way to end the main show. We're not done yet. You know, Ryan was about to say something very deep and meaningful. We're going to do that with everybody in the post show at stream.aljazeera.com. Come with us with Samantha, Celia, Ryan and Andrea, and we will talk about mental health and young people there. See you online. Thanks for watching. Hello again, this is the online post show. We're discussing mental health in the young. Let's get right back to it. Was that the fastest 30 minutes you've ever had in your life? Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was like, what happened? We just started talking. What? That's wrong. Andrea, when you do a consult, how long is your consult usually?
Oh gosh, a consult could be hours.
Oh, hours? Wow, I was just like, that was faster than one of Andrea's consultations. All right, so Ryan was about to tell us something great, and Ryan, I just asked you to hold on to it for a moment. Can you remember what you were going to say?
Definitely. It's the power of that support structure that we find the most important ingredients in the healing process. Support groups is also a vital thing that we like to do, but here in South Africa, not a lot of people have access to mental health care practitioners. In one of our provinces, we only have one psychiatrist statistically per 100,000 people. So we like to teach people to take power back themselves.
How is that even possible? I think your psychiatrist will probably need a psychiatrist with all of those clients there.
It's pretty scary. So what we want people to realize is that there is hope for themselves, and with that love and with that support, this can be a journey to healing within themselves, but they need to be prepared for that journey.
You know what I was thinking?
Oh, yes, definitely.
Go ahead, Celia.
That's what I want to comment on as well, is the fact that it is a journey. It's not just like a cold that goes away or something that goes away. It's probably something you're going to be dealing with for the better part of your life, and you're going to have relapses. So that is also important for anyone to know out there, is if you seek help and if you get better, you know, try to keep yourself getting better and try to like have this mindset going on the whole time, because you might relapse, and that is okay.
See, Samantha and Celia, we were talking about this as we were getting ready for the show, and we were thinking, okay, so if our metaphor is illness, there are a lot of illnesses that you get well from, and then you don't have it. Like, I used to have this, or I used to have that. But with some mental health issues, you're always going to have them. So Samantha, are you always going to be OCD? Will you always be counting doorknobs and doing the thing with your bed sheet and all? That's a lot of, that's exhausting. That's your entire life, right?
Yeah, it is my entire life. And I mean, sometimes I'm burning myself twice with a curling iron.
Talk us through that, because I know what you're saying here, but for people who are just watching, they're like, huh?
Oh, okay.
So take us through that scenario.
I need everything to be symmetrical with respect to my body.
Yes.
I have particular difficulty with things that are either very hot or very cold. So if I'm curling my hair, or if I'm straightening my hair and I accidentally touch my shoulder with my curling iron, I then have to do the exact same thing to the other side.
Oh.
And I mean, I'm able to smile about this, and I'm able to kind of laugh at myself, and because I do know that this is something that's going to be throughout my entire life. And I also take joy in the times and I celebrate when I don't do these things. So every once in a while, I'll open a door for myself, and I won't touch that door again with my other hand. And it's not a big deal to anybody else but me, but I can have a little mini dance party for myself in my head saying, yeah, you're awesome. And that's okay, and do that.
Celia, I actually want to shift gears just a little bit here and read you some of the things that I'm seeing from people. This is from Yared on Twitter, and he says, depression and stress, these things aren't even well understood in some parts of the country. He says specifically in Africa, though I know it's not just in Africa. And so then that leads me to these next two tweets with people saying depression is often branded as a luxury illness. That's from Francesca. Another person, Osoba, says, you're privileged, you're not allowed to be depressed. And that's in quotes because that's one of the things that people hear. So I wanted you to pick up on what it's like in Icelandic society, because as you saw that first tweet, they talked about Africa, but it's not just there.
No, I mean, mental health and mental illness is a global conversation. It's a global issue, and the stigma and taboos are, of course, different in each country. In Iceland, it is, well, not something that was talked about until a couple of years ago. You know, people were just put into boxes, put into psych wards, put into hospitals. So I think that in the past maybe 20 years, it's begun to be like an actual conversation. But you get these prejudice everywhere. You get these people everywhere who don't understand, who are always going to tell you it's all in your mind, or you just have to get out of bed. And this is why I've been advocating. This is why, you know, I've been talking about these things, is because as soon as I started talking about it, and as soon as I started opening up to everyone around me, the conversation shifted, and everyone started thinking like, oh, so this is actually an illness. It's not just something, you know, that you chose to do.
Andrea, I saw something really interesting, and this was from Columbia University. It's here on my laptop. It's a petition page, and it says that in the Sustainable Development Goals, which is like all of the world getting together and saying, in the next 15 years, how do we want the world to be a better place? Down here, mental health is missing. It seems to me that there seems to be progress. I mean, a lot of what we're talking about is the stigma, maybe being embarrassed about not going to seek help, the public not actually understanding, and families and friends not understanding mental health issues. Do you see anything changing? Are you seeing us making progress? What are you seeing?
I do. You know, I mentioned that the media portrays mental health illness and treatment of mental health and anything related to mental health in kind of one way. Recently, I won't give any spoilers, but Game of Thrones, a fantasy show.
What? Seriously, where? Where was it in Game of Thrones? I think everyone in Game of Thrones has got mental health issues, though, right?
Well, true.
Yeah.
They're quite the those characters are fascinating.
Yes.
But they depicted something related to suicide, but nothing so far has been really talked about that. So I think that we need to look to social media. We need to look to these conversations, the one we're having right now.
Yeah.
An example of social media helping us is this app called My3 app. It's available to everybody as long as you have a device. It's available online. And My3 is this program that allows you to store 3 important people in your life, 3 contacts who you're going to contact if you're feeling unsafe. And there are a number of different resources for young adults, teens, LGBTQI individuals, males who there is unfortunately a bigger stigma among males who are feeling suicidal. So there's a section for them. There's a section for veterans. And this program allows people to think ahead, to plan who they're going to contact through this amazing device. And it allows them to access other resources, to create a safety plan, to share, to email that safety plan. A safety plan is essentially a series of steps you'll take when you're feeling unsafe and you're feeling like you need to take some steps to keep yourself safe, like calling your mother, like calling a friend, like doing a relaxation exercise, remembering to take your medication, all sorts of things.
But you don't even, I mean, if you don't have access to an app or a smartphone, you don't even have to do that using an app. You could do it the old-fashioned way by keeping a little diary with all of those details in. It was like,
absolutely.
How people used to do that.
The whole thing is to think ahead, right? Because when we're in distress, we're not thinking clearly. We have all of these intrusive thoughts. And so the best thing to do is to plan ahead. Think about your safety plan. Think about the people that you're going to call. Write it down. Keep it in your phone. That is the best way to keep yourself safe.
Let me just show you something that Samantha did, bearing in mind that you've heard a lot about Samantha's lifestyle. Have a look here. This is Samantha doing a TEDx talk. Samantha, I don't even know how you managed to do this, bearing in mind your symmetry issues, but you put together this TED talk. Why did you feel it was important? Because you told us in the pre-show that you don't even tell people that you're OCD, you try and hide it. So here you are outing yourself. Why did you do that?
It was really important for me to do that TED Talk because I realized that what helped me get through some really tough times was the internet. And I went online and I watched others do TED Talks on anxiety and obsessive compulsive disorder. And I realized that given that opportunity, I couldn't just let it go by. I had to speak up. And even though it makes me vulnerable, it makes me anxious, and that's okay because it's for the
Okay, I'm going to get everybody just to tell us one line at the end that's going to help people watching this understand mental health a little bit better. One takeaway. If they don't remember anything else that you said, they remember this one thing. Sylvia's face was like, what? Why did you do that to me? Let me start with, not Sylvia, let me start with Ryan. Your takeaway for this conversation about mental health and young people is what?
One of our catchphrases at SADAG is that suicide shouldn't be a secret. So we need to discuss it. We need to talk about it. And if someone is confiding in you and they say, please don't tell anyone that I'm going to commit suicide, we need to break that bond of secrecy. We need to get them help.
Andrea.
Yeah, I would say something that I say to the kids that we work with. how you think and what you do can change how you feel. So that would mean that you have control. Yes, you may need to resource out, you may need to see someone for your mental health challenges and issues, but you have control and you can get better.
Samantha?
Allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to be scared, and it's okay.
And Celia, because you did a bug-eyed face at the beginning, I left you till last. Now you've got to come up with something extra good, which is what?
Well, I just want to say to everyone who is suffering through something like depression or anxiety, a hero can be anyone. And since I was able to step out of the worst times, and Samantha and everyone else was able to do that, you're able to do that too. All you have to do is listen to the way you're feeling and never ignore that what's going on in here is just as important as what is going on in your body.
I feel very humble talking to you all today. I really enjoyed the conversation. We've got one more place to go to, and that's the community. Malika.
A one-liner from Nitya on Twitter. She says there needs to be collaboration between research and the community to bring attention and curiosity to mental health and credibility to treatment.
Samantha, Celia, Ryan and Andrea, thank you so much for talking about mental health. It's not easy, but I'm really glad that we did it. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to move on. Let me tell you what we're going to be doing on the next AJ stream. Eritrea has dismissed a recent UN report accusing it of widespread human rights violations as, I'm going to quote here, vile slander. We'll be joined by Eritreans to talk about this. Until then, see you online.